What's it like living in a small community in remote Alaska? We're going to talk about living in Healy, a rural community in the interior of Alaska. Surrounded in every direction by hundreds of miles of forest, mountain ranges, and wilderness, Healy borders Denali National Park. The center of Healy sits 100 miles south of Fairbanks and 249 miles north of Anchorage. The George Parks Highway, usually called the Parks Highway, and once known as the Anchorage-Fairbanks Highway, runs 323 miles from the Glen Highway, 35 miles north of Anchorage, to Fairbanks, straight through Healy. The Parks Highway is the only way to arrive by car to Healy. The Thompson Pass on the way to Valdez is often referred to as the most beautiful drive in Alaska, but the residents of Healy are most fascinated with the scenic drive from their hometown to Fairbanks. I personally feel that the drive from Healy south to Cantwell is one of the most, if not the most, beautiful drives in Alaska. Every 5 or 10 minutes there is a pull-off with views more beautiful than the last one. Driving over Broad Pass from Cantwell to Anchorage is also one of my favorite drives in Alaska. When you first move to Healy, you'll feel a bit remote, but you still won't fully understand yet where you are exactly while you familiarize yourself with the town and locals and way of life here. But once you live in Healy and become one of them, you'll not only have a better understanding of how far from the rest of the world that you are, but also how small you are in a gigantic range of mountains and wilderness. Anderson is the closest town to the north of Healy, 40 minutes away and with about 150 residents. It sits about 20 minutes off of the highway. Nenana is 20 minutes further down the Parks Highway and has about 350 residents. To the south of Healy, Cantwell is the closest town with about 200 residents and 40 minutes away. Healy is home to the famous Stampede Road, which was introduced to the world in the 2007 movie Into the Wild. People outside of Alaska see Christopher McCandless as a hero, a person who died living the way he wanted to live and living life to the fullest, while others see him as an irresponsible, unstable young man who is the perfect example of what happens if you go into the wilds of Alaska unprepared and overconfident. The longtime locals of Healy do not like talking about McCandless, and they don't like the movie or name to be attached to their community. They hear about people like him several times every year throughout all of Alaska. He's just another adventurer or tourist to them who came to Alaska and died without plans, without being prepared, and by doing something stupid. He wasn't the first, and won't be the last. From 2007 to 2019, hundreds of tourists headed to the same Stampede Trail once walked by McCandless in hopes of reaching the bus he died in. During these 12 years, 75% of all emergency rescues performed in Healy occurred on the Stampede Trail. Hundreds of tourists had to be airlifted out of Stampede Trail in rescues, and 3 deaths took place on the trail. On June 18, 2020, after 3 more rescues of stranded tourists and another death in 2019, McCandless' famous bus shelter was airlifted by the Army National Guard from its location to an undisclosed temporary storage site to stop hikers from endangering themselves trying to reach it. The community of Healy has just under 1,000 residents, but only about 18% of those live in or near the center of town. The remaining 800 plus of Healy residents are spread out over 700 square miles of land. During the summer season, hundreds of workers arrive in Healy working at one of the many lodges, businesses, and in Denali National Park. These workers come from all over the world, from the lower states, from Europe, from South Africa, from Jamaica, and more. In the center of town, you will find a bank, a Napa store, a grocery store, 3 gas stations, an Asian restaurant, a pizza burger restaurant, a post office, 1 school with grades kindergarten through 12th, and a small public library. There is also a local mechanic who works from his home if your car has problems during the winters when you can't make it to Fairbanks due to storms. There are about 14 lodges in Healy. 3 of them stay open year-round. There is also a community center, chamber of commerce, a part-time health clinic, a volunteer fire department, and a police station with 1 officer. Due to the proximity of Denali Park, during the tourist season, the restaurants are crowded and all 4 cash registers are open at the grocery store. But during the remaining 8 months of the year, you're usually the only person eating in the restaurant, and with only 1 register at the grocery store open, you'll almost always be the first and only person in line. The residents of Healy are extremely friendly, whether you're a tourist, a summer worker, or you just moved here. They're used to outsiders moving here and then leaving after 1 or 2 years due to the long cold winters, so making friends here can be a very slow process. They will invite you to the community events the first day you arrive, but they tend to avoid becoming close to newcomers as they assume you will be leaving soon like most others do, and nobody wants to lose another friend year after year. But once they are convinced you are staying long-term, they treat you like a part of their family. The cost of living in Healy is high, but the biggest problem may be a lack of housing and a lack of a variety of groceries. The grocery store will not have most of the things you are used to buying where you are now. Therefore, many of the residents drive 2 hours to Fairbanks 1 to 2 times every month to save money buying in bulk and to get everything they need, including clothes or items for their homes. There are no confirmed records kept, but it is estimated that about 50% of the residents in Healy live in dry cabins or homes, which means they have no running water. About 30% have no electricity and use generators. There are a few homes for rent, costing anywhere from $1,200 to $2,000 plus utilities every month. But most who rent here rent either dry cabins or cabins with water. Small dry cabins will cost about $550 to $800 with utilities included per month, while small cabins with running water cost about $800 to $1,200 with utilities included per month. In Healy, you are spared these tsunamis and avalanches and large amounts of rainfall. You'll feel the occasional small earthquake, but a little shake never hurt anyone. But don't be fooled. Mother Nature hasn't forgotten about you here. You do get the extra bonus of forest fires, a common event every summer in Denali and in the surrounding areas of Healy. Seldom a summer day goes by when there aren't flames and smoke along the highway while driving home. And smelling the burning trees in your front yard becomes normal after just a few short weeks here. While the summer days are comfortable, with temperatures ranging in the 60s and 70s, the evenings can occasionally reach the low 40s or upper 30s in June and July, and the winters are long and cold. Daytime temperatures get to the 40s in September and don't get back to the 40s until April. Some years, frozen snow can cover the ground from September until May. Temperatures from November to February can range anywhere from -40 to 35 on any given day. Due to the Chinook winds, which brings unseasonably warm weather through Healy several times throughout the winter, temperatures can change from -20 to 30 in a matter of hours, although most days during the winter have temperatures fluctuating between -20 to 10, often changing by as many as 8 degrees every hour. This is one of the biggest complaints newcomers to Healy have about the weather here. The other complaint are the strong winds whenever it gets warmer, making 10 degrees feel more miserable than -30 with no winds. Healy receives an average of 89 inches of snow every year, although the actual amount varies year by year. Although small towns, especially in Alaska, are known for having alcohol, drug problems, and depression, Healy has done a good job avoiding these issues. You don't see any signs of any of these in public. That's not to say that no one is doing drugs or no one is drinking too much in Healy, but you just don't see it nor hear about it. I have yet run into a single person I would classify as depressed. In fact, most people seem to be outgoing, happy, and are not mentioning anything that can be considered sad. Most of the newcomers have contact with their families back home and talk about it. Nobody seems to be hiding from anyone. The seasonal workers do have a spot outside of the center of town where they go for some heavy drinking on weekends in the summer up near a creek. Everyone in town knows about it and they let them have their fun, but they're not too thrilled with all the trash that's usually left behind. To me, it seems there are 3 types of people who choose to make Healy their home or have chosen to stay here. The introverts. They're more likely to live in cabins miles off of any roads, only reachable by snowmobile or walking. Everyone knows where they live, but they keep to themselves and everyone leaves them in peace. There are also the introverts who move here from the lower states who work in lodges or at convenience stores. They're very friendly and not very talkative unless you start up a small conversation with them. Then you have the nature lovers. They usually explain they moved here to work in the summer and decided to stay because they enjoyed or wanted to see more wildlife and natural beauty rather than pavement and buildings. It's also common that young couples with 1 or 2 children under the age of 5 come up here to live. They often say they wanted their kids to grow up around nature rather than the city life. Just like in most of Alaska, you meet people from many lower states who moved here. In Healy, there seems to be a larger amount of Californians and people from Florida than in other parts of Alaska I have lived. The lifestyle, the mentalities, the important things in life are the biggest differences I have noticed in Healy than other parts of the US. Healy attracts a different breed of people. To many here, the outside world does not really exist. We don't have time for that. Driving up to our favorite spots to sit and look over the valleys all afternoon is important to us. Going out in hopes of spotting the lone wolf or porcupine that is traveling through town is a day well spent. Preparing for the upcoming winter takes a lot of time and is a necessity. Appreciating where you live and how lucky you are to be one of the few who gets to live here is what is really important in this life we lead. Happy solitude.